Jai Nrsimhadev, Praladesha Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringo, Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha, Jaya Jai Nrsimhadev, Praladesha Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringo, Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha, Jaya Jai Nrsimhadev, Praladesha Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringo, Shri Nrsimha Jai Nrsimha, Jaya Jai Nrsimhadev, Praladesha Jaya Padma, Mukha Padma Bringo.
Pralad Nrsimhadev ki Jai, ausnahmsweise heute wegen dem Tempelpräsident und Shri Goranitai Jagannath Baldev Subhadra ki Jai, Gur Premanande. Haribo.
Hare Krishna, liebe Gäste, liebe Devotees, ein großes Willkommen zu unserem Sonntagsprogramm hier im Krishna Temple Zurich. Hare Krishna, dear guests, the devotees, a very, very warm welcome to our Sunday program here at our Krishna Temple Zurich. Is someone here for the first time? Okay, welcome everyone. Nice to see you also here. Also a special welcome to you. Our Sunday program is as follows. We will now have a talk on Krishna conscious wisdom, on spiritual wisdom, until 5 o'clock. At 5 o'clock there will be a vegetarian feast. At 6:15 a guided mantra meditation. At 7 o'clock a temple ceremony, and from 8 o'clock onwards there will be more singing of kirtan, of mantras like now we had. For our talk now, we are very happy here to invite His Grace Damodar Prasad Prabhu. Please welcome him with a big Hari Bol. I think he doesn't need much of an introduction. He's the temple president of this temple, so who am I to introduce him? But just some background information. He came into contact of Krishna consciousness around 2015, and from that time on he started to live as a monk here in this temple, also traveled for some years with his spiritual master all over the world, and shared Krishna consciousness with other people. and from 2021 onwards, he has taken the responsibility as a temple president and is going to speak on the topic of the great drum. Is that correct? The great drum. So let's see what it is. Just 2 questions. First of all, please everyone, I ask you to come forward. Don't be shy. And another question is for the translation. Braucht jemand eine deutsche Übersetzung? So, alle verstehen Englisch? Okay, good. Then wish you a very happy Sunday. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Who is here for the first time? Okay. I'm wondering if I should give the presentation that I prepared or if we should just do something else. So many newcomers. Those who are here for the first time, you have any questions? Do you have any specific questions that you brought along? Yeah. Yeah, that's the best actually, yeah. To just sit and listen. So Hare Krishna also from my side. Thank you all very much for coming today. And it's nice to see so many of you. The reason why I said I'm not sure if I should speak about the topic I prepared, because the topic, the great drum, as you will see soon, is about book distribution. Book distribution, many of you. What's your name again? Yeah. Jason and Arti, they're here for the first time. And they just met one of our monks on the street distributing books 1 week ago. And so you might wonder why is he speaking about this? But maybe I can try to do it in a way that it's interesting for everyone, those who practicing Krishna consciousness for some time, and also those who are here for the first time. And maybe you understand why we do we do that. So the great drum is the topic. I will not sing. I'll just chant a few prayers to ask for blessings, and if you like you can chant along for those of you who know the prayers. Om Ajnanatirmirandhasya Gyananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namah. Sri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitang Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandehang Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavangscha Sri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunatang Vitang Tvang Sajivam Sadvaitang Savadutang Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Sri Radha Krishna Padan Sagana Lalita Sri Vishakhan Vitangsha. He Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpa Tarupyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah. Jai Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Preshtaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namine. Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharine Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Pasyatyade Shatarine. The Great Drum is the title of today's lecture, and this title is derived from a Sanskrit term, Brihad Mridanga. This is a Mridanga. The Mridanga is considered the most important instrument when we sing mantras. And we just had Shyam Kinkara Prabhu, he's a wonderful Mridanga player. My favorite Mridanga player is Ramdas. And I think those of you who have been in kirtans, Mridanga is a very fascinating instrument, especially if somebody knows how to play. It can bring the kirtan to an absolute height, and it can also destroy the kirtan if somebody doesn't know how to play. Brihad means great, so it's a literal translation from Sanskrit, the great drum, and this term was coined by Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who is a very great saint in the Bhakti Yoga tradition. And he, as I already mentioned, is referring to the distribution of devotional literatures. And I will in this presentation refer to that simply as book distribution, as we call it in ISKCON, in this movement. It also includes the publishing of books, writing of books, and then the culmination is distribution. So I just keep it as book distribution. This is a picture of Srila Prabhupada, our founder, Acharya, and he is a disciple of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, the person who coined the term Brihad Mridanga. I would like to show you a few recordings, footage of Srila Prabhupada, where he himself speaks or you see him in action. I hope we have enough time for that. And the goal of this presentation is to give a little bit an understanding why we see monks on the street distributing books all over the world, and why so many of us have come to a temple because of that. What's the significance of book distribution? What's the deeper meaning? And I also would like to give you a little bit of a historical background. So please bear with me. I will try to do it as interesting as possible. And I think it's relevant for all of us. We might think, why is it important for me, this book distribution? And I will try to explain why it's a very important thing for all of us. I would like to read one quote by Srila Prabhupada. We can see him here with one of his books. I like very much to receive the report of my book sales. I think it also gives encouragement to the devotees who distribute the books. Here at Mayapur, my Guru Maharaj was printing one paper. It was selling for only a few paise. Paise means it's actually worth nothing here. Paise is not even a rappen, less, much less. But his spiritual master, meaning Bhaktisiddhanta, he was happy even if somebody sold one paper. sometimes whenever one brahmachari, a brahmachari means one like me who is in saffron, a monk, would go to Navadvip, which is a place on the opposite of the Ganges, and sell even a few copies, I would see my Guru Maharaj become very much pleased. Even if the brahmachari was not a very important member, my Guru Maharaj would become very, very pleased with him. So now we see if the equipment is in place. Here comes also a recording of Srila Prabhupada. We can see it well. Everybody can see the screen? It was not put in. Now it should work.
Yeah. So I took up this from his mom that he's very fond of books. And he told me personally, well, if you get some money, print books. Therefore I'm stressing on this point. Where is book? Where is book? Where is book? So kindly help me. This is my request. Print as many books in as many languages and distribute throughout the whole world. Then Krishna consciousness movement will automatically increase.
So it's the same message. Srila Prabhupada is saying that he's very fond of these books, and that's why he also asked his disciples to distribute. In the previous quote, he was saying that he is very happy if he hears the book scores, meaning if we will also do that today, we read the book scores to the deities. And why we also speak about this, because at the moment in ISKCON all over the world, many devotees, they make a special effort to go out on the streets and distribute books. They call it the Christmas Marathon. And there is a story how this Christmas Marathon actually started, because the disciples, Srila Prabhupada, when he was physically present, he had thousands of disciples all over the world. And all of them would just die to just hear what he wants, and then they would do it. So when he said, I want books to be distributed, thousands of disciples would go out daily and distribute books. And one of the devotees tells the story that it was Christmas time and he went to a mall in the US and he was distributing books. And the custom even today is that some devotees would go to a place and then everybody to a particular spot in a shopping mall, on a parking lot, in a shopping street, in public places, and they would distribute and then come back in the evening. But this devotee was distributing, and somehow everybody took a book on that day. Just whoever he met took a book. And the time came where he was supposed to go back to the temple, but because everybody took a book, he thought, let me just continue for a little bit. So he continued for another hour, but still everybody took a book, so he thought, let me just continue a little bit, so another hour. And then at some point it was 11 p.m. He thought, everybody must be wondering where I am, so let me go back to the temple. And he went back, and to his surprise, nobody was at the temple. And he was at the temple, and then slowly devotees would come in, and the same thing happened to all of them. That it was going so well that they didn't want to go back to the temple, and they just continued on. And that's how the Christmas Marathon was born. People are very receptive, people want to buy gifts, they are charitable, so then it became a whole marathon. Srila Prabhupada here says in another statement, actually producing and distributing books is our most important engagement. All other engagements culminate in this one and distribution of books. So we in ISKCON, we do so many things. We do at the Sunday program, we worship the deities, we do great festivals, food distribution, we give courses, etc., etc. But Prabhupada says book distribution is the most important of all. And we hopefully will understand a little bit why. I would like to speak first of all about the purpose of book distribution. You know, here we speak about Srila Prabhupada, who is supposed to be a saintly person, a guru. Bhaktisiddhanta, he was saying he's a saint, but why do they put stress on book distribution? Is it to just get a lot of money? No, we saw before Guru how Srila Prabhupada, he was sitting on a big throne. That could be the maybe impression, yeah, he just wants to aggrandize himself, get a lot of money, and that's the purpose of book distribution. I would like to read one quote to you again from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati, who, and I mentioned here, is the founder of the Gaudiya Math. Gaudiya Math is a monastery in India. Still to this day we find many of these temples and monasteries, and he himself established many of such Gaudiya Math monasteries in the whole of India. This is the quote: Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's instruction in Shikshastakam Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam is the only motto of the Gaudiya Math. So those who are here for the first time, this sounds like what? It's all strange words I cannot understand. Let me try to explain. And this is a quote, not just some quote, but it's the first of 64 principles of the Gaudiya Math which Bhaktisiddhanta established. So he established a community, a spiritual community. We are looking for community. That's why we came here. And especially those who are spiritual, we are looking for spiritual community. And he established this community in these different temples, and he established principles to be followed by these people, a spiritual society. And the first one is this. So he says that Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is an avatar, a personality who appeared 500 years before, he gave some instructions called Shikshastakam. So we don't have to worry about this. You don't have to worry about the name. But this person has given Shikshastakam instructions. He gave teachings in very short verses. And in that verse he said, Param Vijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. And I also highlighted Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. That is actually what we are looking for. So this Sankirtanam, Shri Krishna Sankirtanam, is the motto of the Gaudiya Math. What is a motto? A motto means that's why we exist. That's why we are here for. And Sankirtanam, you all experienced, those who came on time, that's what we just did before. We were chanting together the Lord's name. That's Sankirtanam. Sankirtanam is two words. Kirtanam comes from kirti, to glorify, and san means complete, perfect. So I mean the perfect glorification of whom? Krishna. Who? It is a name of God. So that is the first duty of the spiritual community, to glorify the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And this Sankirtanam in the Vedic culture, where we Hare Krishnas come from, is the what we call the Yuga Dharma. So we all have some spiritual background, we do some meditation, we want to be self-enlightened personalities. And in the Vedic culture, they give different ways how one can attain enlightenment. So, for example, we know one is the meditation. No? In India, if you go to the Himalayas, you see yogis still to this day, they have a big beard and they sit lonely in a cave and they just meditate all day. That's one way how to attain self-realization, meaning to understand who I am and to develop my spiritual life. But Sankirtanam, what we just did before, is the way which is recommended by this saint, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who is also an avatar, that this is actually the most practical process in this age, Sankirtanam. And don't we see how easy it is? We can come, sit down, there is some nice melodious mantra chanting, and we can just sit. We don't have to do anything special. And by doing that in a sincere way, we actually attain self-realization. So that's the motto of the Gaudiya Math. And Bhaktisiddhanta, the same person who said that this Brihat Mridanga, the great Mridanga, the Mridanga is supporting the Sankirtanam, but book distribution is the great Mridanga. This is the small Mridanga, book distribution is the great Mridanga. This is probably interesting, especially for those who are initiated into this line, to understand a little bit of this historical background. So Bhaktisiddhanta, he established a logo of the Gaudiya Math. This is the logo. And you can see on top is this saint, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, who gave these Shikshastakam instructions. And I'm not going to go into detail, but what I want to focus on is this part here. It shows, who can recognize what is, yeah?
Printing press and the Mridanga.
Yes, so the Mridanga is kind of clear. If you would take away this cloth, then you would clearly see that that's a Mridanga. It has these kind of leather strings. And then on top the printing press, meaning the printing press which prints books, that's the Brihat Mridanga. It's also a Mridanga. So he established in the logo itself that this book distribution is equivalent to the Mridanga. And now I'm going to, before we go further, I would like to again go back to this Sankirtanam, which we explained here. Sankirtanam, as we in our culture believe, is the way to attain self-realization, and for us self-realization means we go to a place which is spiritual. So we believe that there is a place, like we have a place here, we are in the material world, it's a material place, there is a place which is fully spiritual, but it's still full of variety and personalities. And that this Sankirtanam can bring us there. And the spiritual world, like the material world, it has many different places. It's not that if you come to the material world, it's just one place. If you are in Zurich or if you are in Delhi, it's a difference. There's different places in the material world. And if you are on the planet Earth or you are on the planet Moon, there is a difference. Different atmosphere, different lifestyle, different life. So similarly in the spiritual world, there's different places according to the Vedic philosophy. And we as a spirit soul, who are now in this material world, in a material body, can go there by practicing spiritual life and by practicing Sankirtanam. And it is said by one saint in our tradition, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtan. So again, this word Sankirtan, this has come from the spiritual world. Sankirtan is not something which was introduced here, something new, which some intelligent people have come up with, but it's something which exists in the eternal realm, the spiritual world. And there it's practiced by all the people who live there, Sankirtanam. And we see here in this logo, just to make it short, you have two sides. We have here the left and the right side. And these depict two places in the spiritual world. So in the spiritual world, to make it there's many places, but there's basically two categories. One place, the people understand that there is a God, and they worship God as such. And in another place, they live with God, but they don't know that He's God, and they treat Him like a friend. So that's our philosophy. We believe in God, we believe there is a place where He lives, and He lives in different places simultaneously, and you can have a relationship with Him. And in some places, you actually live with Him and you know He's God. And if you are with the President of the United States, I don't know if that with Trump would be the same, if you would be so respectful, but you would be very, respectful, and so similarly there they worship God as God, but in some place in the spiritual world the living entities, they forget that He's God, and they have a very intimate relationship, like we have relationships here with friends, lovers, parents. And Sankirtanam is coming especially from this part of the world. It's not so much coming, it's coming also from the other part, but mainly from this part, Goloka, Golokera Premadana Harinama Sankirtana. Because there, all the living entities, they don't do anything else than Sankirtan. They don't speak about the news, who got president of the United States, who won the football game, who is the new Miss Universe, what's the economy doing. They don't worry about these things in the spiritual world. In the spiritual world, as it is described in the Vedic literatures, everybody is simply concerned about God, Krishna. And everybody is constantly speaking about Him, how He looks, what He does, what He says. Why? Because God is all beautiful, all attractive. So they're constantly meditating and thinking, speaking about Him. And Sankirtan means they're constantly speaking about Him. So this is important to understand in this part. On one hand, you have this place where they worship God in opulence, and then you see a bell and a lamp. You will see that at 7 o'clock. That's how they worship the Lord, with rituals. And on the other hand, in this place where they worship God not as God, but as an intimate associate, they worship by doing Sankirtan. They glorify the Lord. And now I'm going to read a quote to you by Srila Prabhupada. My Guru Maharaj, he's speaking again about Bhaktisiddhanta, used to say that this is Brihat Mridanga. Brihat Mridanga, the great Mridanga. The great drum. Mridanga, that drum you have seen, that is small Mridanga. If I beat on this drum, maybe a few yards people can hear from few yards. But this, the books are distributed. It can go from country to country, from continent to continent. No, makes sense. We can do a nice kirtan in this room like we did before, and this drum will induce us in this room to chant. But if we distribute books, then the same glorification about the Lord, kirtan, can go to far distant places. And here another quote, therefore we are stressing so much, please distribute book, distribute book, distribute book. A greater mridangam, it is heard within one room or little more. But this mridangam will go home to home, country to country, community to community. And one more quote, so I am always emphasizing book distribution. It is better kirtan, it is better than chanting. Of course, chanting should not stop, but book distribution is the best kirtan. So that's a heavy statement by Srila Prabhupada, that he even puts book distribution above the kirtan of chanting the name. We're speaking about the importance, the purpose of book distribution. I would like to read this quote to you. It's a famous quote, many of you have heard. The pen is mightier than the sword. Who has heard that quote? Who knows that? Not many, so you're learning something new today. That's good. The pen is mightier than the sword. What a sword is a weapon, no? Where we can go on the battlefield and fight. But here it says the pen is even mightier than the sword. And I'm going to read you another quote to clarify this one. And this is from an inscription above entrance to the Brooklyn Public Library, so a place where books are being kept. Farther than arrow, an arrow means, again, we're speaking about some weaponry. Farther than arrow, higher than the wings, fly poet's song and prophet's words. it brings out the same point that with such an instrument, with a sword, with an arrow, with a wing, you can go in a limited space, but with the written word, you can do many things simultaneously and go far away. And we have a few examples of this in history. There is one famous book which influenced all of our thinking. Charles Darwin is a famous person if you go to the science lessons in school. He wrote the book The Origin of Species, and that he wrote in 1859. And in this book he explained that the humans came from the apes, the monkeys. So that book, he wrote it sometime, someplace, but it shaped the whole world history by giving all the human beings the understanding that we came from the apes. If you believe in it or not is another thing, but that's what currently is taught in school. Another very popular book is the Communist Manifesto by Karl Marx, written in 1848, which still to this day many countries they follow communism. So we can see the pen is mightier than the sword. Somebody just wrote with a pen and they influenced millions of people over a huge amount of time. And we can see that these great saints, they understood that point, that if we want to spread the Krishna consciousness, the glorification of the Lord, real spiritual life, we should use the books, words in written form, because this can go far and wide. And we can see here one example how in our line this has been started. This is a painting of Rupa Goswami, who is a direct disciple of the same Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who established that practice of sankirtan. And he is now here sitting as a poor monk in a holy place, and he's writing scriptures. At that time they didn't have MacBooks, so they used to write on palm leaves. And he was just one among a few exalted personalities who started to compile devotional literatures. And that was the instruction coming from Chaitanya Mahaprabhu himself. He wanted to spread Sankirtan all over the world, and he taught his disciples to start writing books. And this is another very important reason why books in this line of bhakti especially are so foundational. It is said in one of our scriptures, Shruti Smriti Puranadi Pancharatra Viding Vina Aikantiki Harer Bhaktir Utpata Yeva Kalpate. This verse says that even though you practice bhakti and it might look very good from an external point of view, but if it's not according to the religious ideals and the saintly person's teachings, it's actually only creating disturbance in human society. So bhakti looks very simple, no? You just sit down, you chant mantras, you take some sanctified food, you worship some deities on the altar. But there is a lot more to it to make it really spiritual and not just some external ritualistic thing. And Rupa Goswami, the saint, and many others of his contemporaries, they wrote books just to establish a foundation. What is actually bhakti? What is real spiritual life? What is happening in the spiritual world? How can we go there? They compiled many, many literatures. And they also tried to distribute these books in India, but you can well imagine it's a little bit more difficult. They didn't even have book press, so they had to copy books by hand. And in this way they would slowly distribute books. Naturally, due to these circumstances, there was a big break in our tradition, and at some point the teachings were almost lost. So you can see these saints were living in the 16th century. It was only later when one great saint, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, came, and you can see that's closer to where we are now. He appeared in 1838, and he was considered the seventh Goswami. So when we go back, this is one of the six Goswamis. The six Goswamis are the greatest scholars at the time who wrote all the scriptures. And Bhaktivinoda Thakur, who came much later, he was given the title of being the seventh Goswami. And what he did, he also wrote many scriptures, many books. And he was actually the first one to start writing English books about bhakti, because he grew up in the colonial India, where English was taught in school, so he knew English, and he started to write books. And he also printed books. He started to print books. However, he saw that he himself is limited in his capacity to propagate this religion of the age, sankirtan, to the world. And he was praying for someone to help him. And that's how, as we can see, is the father of Bhaktisiddhanta, that same personality appeared, the personality who coined the term Brihat Mridanga. That was his son. And Bhaktisiddhanta, from a small age, he was taught by Bhaktivinoda Thakur how to publish books. You know, there's many steps if you want to publish books. The printing press is only one small part, and he was taught from Bhaktivinoda Thakur from small age, and he then actually took it up and distributed these things in these books in India. He printed many literatures. And I just came back from India. I bought this, it's just one of many books. It's called The Harmonist. So this was one of the magazines which Bhaktisiddhanta started to print and distribute in India. And you can see, you cannot see, but he started to do this in 1927. And he did that for many years. And he taught his disciples to do the same, to distribute books. And Srila Prabhupada then, his disciple, he took it to heart, as we could hear, and he came to the West and started to distribute many, many books. Now, I wanted to show you a video, but this video goes 12 minutes, and we don't have the time. It's called Brilliant as the Sun, and it's from the 70s, and it shows how Srila Prabhupada used to translate books and how his disciples would publish books and distribute books. But we don't really have the time for that. But I want to give you a little bit an understanding how Srila Prabhupada, he made book distribution really, he made the book distribution explosion. We were just with Uttama Shloka Prabhu today, we went on a website, the World Sankirtan newsletter, and we were checking the book scores, and there it says, to this day, there has been 600 million books distributed of Srila Prabhupada in the whole world, which is a lot. And this video would have been nice to show you. It gives a glimpse how this has come to happen. But Srila Prabhupada, he translated books. Initially in India, he would translate books, like you do, you write it down. But then later on, he would do it by speaking in a tape, and then his disciple would transcribe and do all the rest of the work. And that's how he published volumes of books. He became well known as being the most profound writer in the Bhakti tradition, and not only writer but distributor of books. And that's the reason why we are here now, why we have a temple, and actually everywhere you go in the world you find Hare Krishna temples. The reason is because of mass scale book distribution. So many people have been exposed to the teachings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and have been attracted, invited to take part in this Sankirtan movement. Who has received some book or invitation card on the street or from a friend on the street? Not so many, actually. or maybe everybody's shy. Who thinks that one of Srila Prabhupada's books had made some deep impact in his spiritual life? Yeah, that's more. I want to show you a picture here. That would have been the video, but I'm skipping that. This is a picture of His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Swami, one of our gurus in ISKCON, and his disciple Mahotsav Prabhu, and in front an unknown person who is just receiving a stack of books, and all of them look quite blissful. So Mahotsav Prabhu is actually the devotee who has the record in book distribution in ISKCON. He distributed more than 5,000 books in one day, which is quite inconceivable, but he's enthusiastic. His name Mahotsav means enthusiastic, and so he's one of the ones who do that service. And that's usually what we see on the street. We see some monks in saffron, they distribute books. Often people are happy, but I would also like to speak a few moments about the negative side of book distribution, because we speak about something which can be controversial, and it's always good to look at it from different sides. So what we spoke so far is that this book distribution has, history has shown, it has exposed millions of people to spiritual practice. But then there is also criticism and pitfalls of book distribution. And I just thought I'll take this picture. Again, we have Bhaktisiddhanta. You can see him in the back of the car. This is an old car, as you can see, in India. And Bhaktisiddhanta, as a monk, is sitting in that car. And why do I show this picture? In that time in India, if you would see a monk sitting in a car like this, people would think, what kind of monk is this? Because a monk in that time meant he's not wearing any shoes, he's not having more belongings than maybe 5, 6, 7 items, some clothes, maybe a stick and a pot and a plate and his prayer beads, that's it, and a book. But why is he driving in a car? So this criticism of book distribution, or here in another case of Bhaktisiddhanta taking means which are very modern, has been going back many, many years. Bhaktisiddhanta also would wear watches or coats, nice clothes, and he was often criticized by the public for doing that. And certainly he was being criticized for publishing books. But Bhaktisiddhanta explained that actually one first has to understand what is spiritual and what is material. From an external point of view, I might think spiritual means one doesn't touch matter. It's just renounced. That's spiritual life. And material life means one who lives in a house, who has material clothes, who has material relationships. That's material life. But he explained that's not the distinguishing factor what is spiritual and material life. But the real test if you're spiritual or material is how you're using things. And he also said you can renounce everything, but if you're internally still always thinking about yourself, about your own happiness, how you can gratify your own body, then what's the use of that renunciation? However, if you use the whole world like a king and you only use everything for the service of God, not for your own pleasure but for the pleasure of the Lord, then that is spiritual. And in that sense he started to do this book distribution. And that's why our acharyas, they have given more importance on book distribution even than other forms of sankirtan, because they could see that if you do it in the perfect consciousness and it has the effect of inducing others to worship God, to connect with God, then how can there be anything better than this? That's just one criticism which has to be dealt with in the beginning, a more philosophical one. But then there is also pitfalls in book distribution, and this is something which is important for those of us who practice book distribution and who come into ISKCON, that the history has shown that I can distribute books with the wrong motive, with the wrong consciousness, and in the wrong way. So initially book distribution is meant to spread the glories of the Lord. But if I do it to collect money or to establish my own superiority over others, if I do it in dishonest means, then it's not good. And this happens and has happened in ISKCON as well. And because this happens, sometimes people also say that book distribution is not good or it should not be done. But there is a saying, another saying which you might learn something today. Don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Das ist ein deutsches Sprichwort. Translated to English, in German it sounds better. But in old times the baby would be put in a bathtub and washed, and then you would throw the bathwater out because it's dirty. And here they say, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, meaning throw away the bad, but keep the good, keep the baby. And the same thing here. Don't throw away the book distribution, throw away the bad mentality behind. And I was thinking of the example, it would be like if you see somebody's playing the mridanga in a kirtan or somebody's singing and you can see the person is maybe doing it to aggrandize his own musical skills or voice, and you would just walk up to the person and stop that nonsense. You know, I can see you not doing it properly for Krishna. Of course we have to teach, but that's not the mood. Or stop the whole kirtan. No, that's not what you say. You change your mood, how you practice kirtan. You don't stop the kirtan, you do it for Krishna. So you don't stop book distribution, you do it for Krishna. And to end, I would just like to go back to Srila Prabhupada, who gave us the perfect example what book distribution really means. And here I took this word transcendental, which is a very unusual word for people who don't know the scriptures of Srila Prabhupada, but he used that word very often. Transcendental means spiritual. Or in a different way, it means something which is beyond material conditioning. Srila Prabhupada, he came to the West in this boat, the Jaladuta, as a poor monk. He didn't have any money with him. He didn't have anything actually with him, just some clothes, what we spoke before. But what did he bring with him? Some books. And now I'm going to show you something far out, those who came last week. This is one of the books Srila Prabhupada brought in the Jaladuta. And actually those of you who like will have it afterwards in the museum. It also has an original signature of Srila Prabhupada inside. Oops, got away.
Which book is this one?
So this is Srimad Bhagavatam. Prabhupada, he brought the full books of Srimad Bhagavatams. He didn't bring anything else, but he brought books. And this is one of those books which we have in our museum. So that is, you know, obviously Srila Prabhupada, why would an old man do that? He comes for 2 months, stays on a ship, having severe health issues on the way, and just to bring some books to the West. And now we see what these books have done. From just a handful of books came 500 million books. And from 500 million books, millions of people started to practice spiritual life. And maybe we cannot relate to Krishna. We don't know what is sankirtan, and even this mantra thing is a little bit strange. But just looking from an external point of view, people have changed their lives. They stopped eating meat. They stopped taking intoxication. They stop having illicit sexual relationships with other people. They're living a really pure life. They meditate 2-3 hours a day. They study books. So that from an external point of view, even somebody who doesn't understand much about Krishna and sankirtan and the spiritual world can appreciate this is something substantial. It's not just some hodgepodge. And I'm going to show you now a very short clip of Srila Prabhupada. As I told you, he was translating books, and he was doing that all his life. From the time he got the instruction of his spiritual master till his last breath. And this is a footage of Srila Prabhupada just a few days before he passed away in India. And he decided that he wants to leave his body voluntarily because he was an old man. And he continued to translate his books basically till the last day. And this shows you how he did that.
Varnashram dharma is so essential that people remain in subtle. Samogam Rajanam Rajastama Bhava increases lust and greediness, and that implicates the living entity to exist in this material world in many, many forms. That is very dangerous. Therefore, they should be brought into such a room that is establishment of Varnashram. How to bring people in such a room grammatical qualification, very neat and clean, like God in the morning, is Mangalarati in this way. To stay in such a room, then one cannot be influenced by Tamogam and Rajagam.
One doctor who visited Srila Prabhupada in these days told his disciples that I don't understand how this is possible. This man should be screaming in pain because he wasn't eating for few months. He was thin. He didn't have any fat anymore. You could see all the bones. And he's not only not screaming, but he's translating books. And this is transcendental book distribution. He was so full of compassion to distribute that knowledge to others for their benefit, so that all the human beings in this world can understand, I'm not this body, I'm not this body, and I'm not supposed to be in this world to suffer. I'm a spirit soul. I'm meant to be in the spiritual world with God. That was his compassion. And I'm sorry I had to start a little late, so I will go 2-3 minutes longer and then I will finish. So May Sankirtan vibrate. No, Parambijayate Shri Krishna Sankirtanam. That's the motto. Let us glorify the Lord. Let's chant. Let's hear about the Lord. Let's have the mridanga be drum loudly. And let's beat the great drum, this Brihat Mridanga. And I just want to show you a few ways how you can also participate in this Brihat Mridanga Kirtan. And like a drum, you can either play the drum, and how do you play the Brihat Mridanga? You do book distribution, you give books away, or you advertise books to others. Then you play the drum yourself. But maybe not so few can play the drum. Like in our society, we realize only very few will actually learn to play the drum. Even though everybody likes the drum and is admiring the drum players, at the end of the day, only 1% of all people will actually learn how to play the drum nicely. So only a few will do the Brihat Mridanga. But how can you participate in the Brihat Mridanga Kirtan? You can sing along. You can read Srila Prabhupada's books. You can study them. You can attend lectures, like you do now. Or you can lecture yourself. At some point when we are more knowledgeable in the scriptures, we can also share with others. Or you can organize kirtans. You can sponsor books. You can support the book distributors, and you can also follow up those who got books and make sure that they chant, they read the books. I would recommend you one book if you like to know more. This is a book by His Grace Vaisheshika Prabhu, Our Family Business. It gives a very comprehensive understanding of the history of book distribution and the importance. So what I did in very short, he's doing very elaborately. And I would like to end with a quote again from Bhaktivinoda Thakur, which we heard before. And then we're going to end. Sriman Mahaprabhu, the saint who established the Sankirtan, with his associated counterparts, attendants, powers and associates, has taught the living entities of this world Sankirtan, congregational chanting of Harinam, the name of God, which is the proper religion in this age. That's explained in all the Vedic scriptures, that this is the religion, the spiritual practice of this age. And we also find this in other scriptures. We find it in other traditions. In the Christianity said, hallowed be thy name. Same principle, same principle. It is not the fact that his appearance was for the purpose of the deliverance of a small number of people of India. On the contrary, his purpose was to deliver all living entities by the propagation of the eternal religion to all countries of the world. Mahaprabhu himself declared this in the following words: "My name will spread into all regions and villages of the earth. There is no doubt that this indisputable command will very shortly turn into effect. It appears to be absolutely certain that all the religions of the world will mature into one universal church of the Sankirtan of the holy name." That was the vision of this holy person. Even Srila Prabhupada, he didn't come and say, you change your religion, you now become a Hare Krishna. No, he said, you remain a Christian, you remain a Muslim, you remain wherever you are, but you start to chant the holy name. We are all doing the same. If you say Sole or Sun or Sonne in German, it's the same Sonne. It's the same. No need to fight. And we can also, sometimes I can chant in your language, and sometimes you can chant in my language, and we'll have fun together. That was his mood. That was his approach. Oh, when will that day arrive when in England, France, Russia, Prussia, and America — Prussia is German, by the way, back then — fortunate men of those countries with flags, drums, kole, and kartal in their native towns, shouting ever and anon the holy name of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, will send a thrill of ecstatic delight all over the world. when will that auspicious day make its appearance, when from one end of the earth white men of Europe and America forming into procession and shouting, all glory to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Isn't that a beautiful vision? And that was Bhaktivinoda Thakur's desire. And his son Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada, the disciple of Bhaktisiddhanta, and his followers again, they are committed to that. And they have trust that by continuing this sankirtan, by distributing books, by chanting, that's how this world will be united. And there can only be one unity, by putting God in the center. It's not possible otherwise. Because God is the uniting factor. If we are all coming from God, and if we understand we are all connected to the same God, then that's how we're going to be united, and all the conflict, all the problems will be ended. Ist Prasad parat überhaupt? Draht noch mal angekocht. We have a cook in our temple. Maybe she hears me, I don't know. Radhamanshi Mataji. She's so enthusiastic to feed the guests with a huge sumptuous feast that usually it takes a little longer when she cooks. So let's see. I'm going to end here. Maybe there is some comment or question from your side. Yes.
Thank you very much for the presentation. You touched on certain aspects of this topic of book distribution, which leads me to a comment or question, and that is, what are your thoughts on transcendental online distribution?
Nah.
Because at the time, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur and our Srila Prabhupada here, the printing press was the most powerful tool to deliver the message, but that was superseded in nowadays by the much powerful actually technology.